Hey, it's Jay and welcome to a video where I show you what I spend a good 3/4 of my week doing. Alright, so let's talk post-production. I know this is maybe a little soon for me to be making a video like this, but since I'm mostly self-taught and started this year, I kind of relate to a lot of the beginner struggles because I've dealt with them up until very recently. So today I will be running through some of my preferences, my workflows, and also a few mini tutorials on some of the things I like to do, like the hand-drawn animations that you see often in all of my videos. All the timestamps will be down below in the description if there's anything specific you're looking for. And with that, let's start off with the basics, which is basically equipment, hardware, software, and other programs. So I use Premiere Pro on my Acer laptop that I've almost yeeted out of this window too many times to count, but has somehow still stuck by me and not burnt out completely. So I love you for that. Premiere Pro is not the easiest software to learn as a beginner because there's quite a steep learning curve that comes with it, but I kind of decided to go with it because I have to learn it for my degree. So I thought this would be a great sort of like practice lead up to that, and that's why I decided to put myself through this kind of suffering. It's also a very versatile software if you want creative flexibility and want to experiment in different ways. It allows you to do a lot of things. But if you're an iOS junkie like me, aside from my laptop, another great app that you can use, especially if you're starting out, is called iMovies. And I think it's a default app that just comes with your MacBook or your iPad or your iPhone when you get it. The great thing about this is that you can edit even from the comfort of your own phone. It's a free app and it's very easy to use and a great sort of stepping stone if you want to eventually upgrade to Final Cut Pro one day. I've heard that the user interface is very friendly, and iMovies and Final Cut Pro are very similar. And these are also a couple of other alternatives that you can use depending on your preferences for your specific needs or requirements. You do have to pay for some of them, but there are places on the internet that you can get them without paying. Just saying, you didn't hear it from me, but if there's will, there's a way. And it's always best if that way is legal, so I'm just putting that out there too. So even if you don't use Premiere Pro or iMovies, there's so many apps out there, and the great thing about like technology today is that you can even film, edit, and upload a video from the comfort of your own phone. You don't need any fancy technology or equipment, especially if you're starting out. So regardless of what it is that you're using, I feel like the tips or tutorials or what I'm gonna say in this video will apply to you, and I hope that you'll be able to get some value out of it as well. For graphics and the animations that you often see in all of my videos, I use my iPad Pro right here along with the Apple Pencil on an app called Procreate. All the filming that you see right here and in all my other videos are done on my iPhone XS Max, and occasionally I do use my AKG Lyra mic that you see right here for my voiceovers from time to time. I don't think it's essential for you to have a mic, especially when you're just starting out, but I have heard that if you're thinking about upgrading, people would be able to kind of make it through a video that has poor visual quality but never bad audio quality. So that's just something to think about when you are considering upgrading your camera or to a microphone to improve the quality of your videos. But all of that needs to be supported by your content, which brings me to the editing process or the workflow. Very smooth transition, if I do say so myself. So there are a few steps that I like to follow in my editing process and a workflow that I've kind of figured out for myself. So we're gonna run through them now. Alright, so the first thing that I generally do after filming, I like to export all my footage onto my laptop and then import it back onto Premiere Pro. So I like to use separate bins for the files that I'm using, for raw footage, for music, for animations, and GIFs. These are some of the files organizing that I did for my room tour video. As you can see, there's like different bins for each of the files that I'm using. The raw footage has all that, and this is super helpful, especially when you're sort of like halfway into your editing process and everything just starts getting really jumbled up together. All of these ideas are coming, so it really helps when the data or all of the footage that you have is really nicely organized here. The only thing that you need to focus on is organizing the thoughts, ideas that you have in your head, which is half of the work taken care of. The second thing I do is a rough cut. So this is a super tedious process. Just look at the amount of like cuts that you see in all of my videos. It's the most necessary part as well for the video, because that's what makes the core of your content. I rearrange things and cut down any unnecessary parts. During this part, I always do my intros, and I always edit my intros to the music. I currently use thematic for my non-copyrighted music. Also, depending on the type of video that I'm making, like for example my previous video, that was something that I did edit to the music from the rough cut itself. So after spending what seems like almost an eternity on the rough cut, I move on to the second round of editing, where I add in other effects, zooms, and music and other kind of emphasis that I want done in the video. Next part is my favorite step, and there's a good chance you clicked on this video just to kind of figure out how that's done. And that's adding in the hand-drawn animations and sort of graphics and other doodles onto my video. I really like it because that's another great way that I get to express my style through visual media. So there's two ways you can do this, and I'm gonna do a little tutorial on both ways so that this works for whatever method is preferential to you. So the first is the easiest for me and what I use, which is the animation feature on Procreate. So I'm gonna show you how we create this effect. The handwritten effect is super easy, and all you need to do is first open up Procreate and then write out your word. You switch on the animation assist that you find over here, and then add another layer tracing out what you wrote on the bottom. The idea here is that you will never write the same thing the exact way twice, and once you put that in an animation loop, you get this kind of like hand-drawn animated text effect. That's it. It's super simple, and then you export it as an animated GIF onto Premiere Pro or whatever software that you're using. And there you have it. So all my other graphics are also hand-drawn on Procreate, as you can see here. You can also get the same effect using the animation feature on Clip Studio Paint as well. However, you do need to make a one-time payment to use Procreate and a subscription fee for Clip Studio Paint. So if you're not quite ready to make that commitment yet, this second method might work out better for you. I'm currently using an app called Medibang for this, but it works just as well on Photoshop or basically any software that you can play around with layers, and allows you to export your images on PNG formats. So just like on Procreate, you write out your word or your picture, open up a new layer on top of it and trace out the word again like we did before. You can reduce the opacity of the previous layer temporarily just to make it easier. And then you export both layers separately as PNG formats, which is basically where the background is transparent, and import them as PNGs itself onto your video. So basically you put them one after another a couple of times, and that creates a sort of animation effect that we got through Procreate as well. This may be a little tedious, but if you really want to get that animation effect, this is the best way to go about it if you don't have Procreate, Clip Studio Paint, or any sort of animation softwares built into the apps that you're using currently. So you can pretty much end the editing process or your workflow right here, but there's generally two more steps I like to take sometimes, and that's adding subtitles if necessary, and the second is something I always do, and that's color correction. And I'm going to show you a little of how I do my color correction. So starting with this clip right here of my sister at the beach from this was from my Island Diaries video. So we're gonna hop on over to color over here. So this is the sequence that we have. I'm gonna go start off with basic correction and play around with highlights, drop them down a little bit, and the whites. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm gonna leave that as. Then most of, I think, majority of the heavy lifting of color correction is done through these curves. And basically what that is each of the relevant colors, what you have down here is the shadows, in the middle you have your midtones, and on the top right here we have our highlights. What I like to do here is kind of drop the shadows a little bit, increase it here so that it's a little contrasty. And then I kind of just like to play around with the effects here, and I feel like no matter how many videos that I've watched myself, nothing has kind of explained the color grading process better than sort of just playing around yourself and figuring out what works for you, throwing things out of balance and bringing them into an equilibrium that makes the most sense for you. I just like play around with the shadows, the mid-tones. As you can see, it kind of creates like various different effects. I think I'm just gonna go with a sort of yellow here, over here. So I'm pretty happy with how that's looking right now. So that's with the color grading, without the color grading. That's basically the difference. Color grading isn't essential, but it's just like another extra mile that I like to go to create my own flavor through the video. Another thing that I do is, of course, my thumbnails, and I edit them again on Procreate. As you can see, I have many attempts at thumbnails, many failed attempts, ideas that didn't make it, even just like with the last video. Procreate really allows you to get like really organic and create that hand-drawn effect that I really like in my thumbnails as well. Another thing I like to do is keep a couple of notebooks, as you can see here, and these are essentially filled with like random thoughts, brain dumps that I have. Like I said, like you organize your files on Premiere Pro. This is a great way to organize all the kind of like overflow of ideas that you have. Just write them all down, get them on paper so it's all written so that you don't forget. I like to use Notion if I'm like scripting and things like that, but for like ideas on the go, I really like to use traditional paper and a pen. Nothing like it. Don't be discouraged, especially when you're starting out with editing and you feel like it takes a really long time. You feel like you're not achieving the exact style that you sort of aspire to. Just know that, like everything, you need time, you need practice. The more you do it, the more proficient you get at it, the more you kind of understand your own mistakes. Once you get your workflow down and you kind of got a rhythm to it, just know that you're on the right track, and that's just what you need to stick to and follow through on. So I hope this helped you, and I maybe hope that you learned something, or you know something new now that you didn't at the start of this video. And please let me know if you did and if you ever tried out for yourself. So happy editing, and I'll see you soon. Bye!